peaceful marches in Alabama and these places.
You don't get freedom peacefully. Freedom is never safeguarded peacefully. Anyone who is depriving you of freedom isn't deserving of a peaceful approach by the ones who are being deprived of their freedom. And when black people in this country come out from under the mental straitjacket that the Negro clergymen have placed them in, and begin to see that the only way you can get freedom is to get it the same way the white man in this country got it from England, or he says he got it from England. He was willing to pay the price for freedom. When you're willing to pay the price for freedom, then you get it. But the Negro in this country has never been willing to pay the price for his freedom. All of the price that we have been paying in the past has been freedom for the white man. We fought abroad so that the white man in America could be free today to sick police dogs on us, to beat our people in the heads with police clubs, and to turn water hose on little women and children and babies simply because they want to walk down the street like decent human beings. That's now the only way you can have peace is to eliminate those injustices, and the American white man is not going to eliminate them. He's going to talk that pretty talk, but he'll still continue to practice those inhuman deeds.
Then you support the
Welcome to the Propaganda Report. I'm your host, Compton J or J. Love this video of Malcolm speaking to reporters. Just still is very eye-opening how media was corporate then, but it was a lot better. Like, you don't hear a lot of activists being asked questions like this on TV right now. So I love these historical clips. Let's do a chat check. Now, I may seem a little low energy than I normally, because literally it's, 6:30 over here, and I'm trying something different. I moved my show. I'm trying to give more support to my wife during the day because I have a more flexible job. So that's why I switched my time to the nighttime last week and had the nightly recap, which was fine. But I wanted to try, because I'm always up early anyway. So I'm like, let me try it in the morning. Let's see how it goes. So we'll see. We may continue at this time, or we may go back to the late night. But let's do a chat check. See, John. What's up, John? Good morning. Okay, I see. Yeah. All right. So it looks like everything's good. We got a good amount of people already in here. So today's main topic is we're going to go over the history, the science, the psychology of propaganda. Who started it? This guy named Edward Bernays. So we'll get into that. But first, we have to start with what's happening right now, which is the Nina Turner election, or is it a special election, or election is today? So it's time to put up or shut up as far as her supporters. I'm not rooting against Nina Turner. I'm just not supporting the Democratic Party anymore. That's not a thing that's ever going to be on my horizon moving forward. So let me play. So Case Study QB, shout out Case Study QB. Hopefully you'll be able to see this. I did see that you liked the tweet this morning, so maybe you're able to catch a little bit of this. But let me play. Actually, I will play the original video after I play. I'm going to play a couple of reformist leftist versions of what happened yesterday. One will be the Rational National. The other will be the Humanist report. But let's start with the Rational National, aka David Dole. Let me take that off and reshare. So as you can see, the sunlight is just popping up on the West Coast. And let's see here. Not that one, this one. Okay, so let's see David Dole. Check out his take on what's happening. It's an 11-minute video. We may watch maybe 3 minutes. So let's watch. Now, I must say, I didn't know the Progressive Caucus had any strengths, so that's surprising. Their ability to stay together doing nothing, like when you do nothing, is that considered like staying together? Maybe that's what she means. Staying together. Yeah, so let's continue.
Trouble in the future for your caucus?
We have almost 100 members, and when we took the vote, no one voted not to endorse Chantal. So
that's the part that shook those on the left that still support the idea of Democrats. That shook. Just that one sentence right there. That's what you're gonna see. A bunch of videos made today. I think I've only found maybe 2 or 3 videos. Yeah. The 2 I'm showing today, and then Status Quo video. So let's watch some more.
So I don't know if the divide that some of the journalists in Washington, D.C., for some of the capital newspapers like to say, but we didn't have it when we endorsed someone. And, the good news is you've got 2 great progressives running. I mean, we like this option.
2 great progressives running. Oh, it was no sound on that video? Hang on a second here. Let's see it. Hang on. I'm gonna play it back. Hang on a second here. Why is it no sound? Oh, let me check here. I'm going to do something else here. Hang on a second. Okay, so what I'll do, let's unshare and then let's share again. See if that works. And if it doesn't, what we're going to do, because there is the raw, like not a raw, but a case study on his Twitter page. He has the same video, so we can go there and play it. I wanted to get his take so you can hear the point of view for those that are still invested in the electoral politics. But let's start it here. We'll see if you're able to hear it this time. Just let me know in the
race,
comments.
Chantal Brown versus Nina Turner. Bernie Sanders is standing by his endorsement of Nina Turner, despite the CPC's endorsement of Brown. And if you think about it, one of the strengths of your caucus is your ability to stay unified. What do you make of this divide? Does it spell trouble in the future for your caucus?
We have almost 100 members, and when we took the vote, no one voted not to endorse Chantal. So I don't know if the divide that some of the journalists in Washington.
So let me see in the comments. Okay, audio's good. Okay, so what I was saying at this point when I stopped it before, I think you heard me, but that was what I was commenting on, saying that this is the part that shook those on the left that are still invested in electoral politics. Is that one sentence that no one was against it.
I don't know if the divide that some of the journalists.
The CPC's endorsement of Brown. And if you think about it, one of the strengths of your caucus is your ability to stay unified. What do you make of this divide? Does it spell trouble in the future for your caucus?
We have almost 100 members, and when we took the vote, no one voted not to endorse Chantal. So I don't know if the divide that some of the journalists in Washington, D.C., for some of the capital newspapers like to say, but we didn't have it when we endorsed someone. And, the good news is you've got 2 great progressives running. I mean, we like this option. What I don't want to have options.
That earthquake you felt, that was the Overton window moving to the right. That's what you were feeling. that seismic shift, that was the Overton window being pushed to the right by Mark. We have two great progressives. That's the same messaging of Pramila Jayapal. When she retweeted or quote tweeted Chantel Brown, when she jumped on or became a co-sponsor of the Medicare for All, of some Medicare for All bill. So, wow, this is what John is saying. We don't want Nina. Wow. Like I said, I'm not rooting against her. I don't know if she's going to win. There's a lot of people on the left that have proclaimed that they really feel like this is not going to happen. She's not going to win. I just don't know. I haven't been reading the local politics or the local newspapers to get a feel. I haven't been watching locals because that's how you really want to find out what's happening, not watching national commentary. You go to the local papers, you go to the local news stations if they have a YouTube, and try to get footage that way. So I don't have a particular. I don't know where the wind is blowing on this, but if the things that I see is happening is telling me that it's very close. Like the endorsements of Chantel Brown, like this is a small district in comparison to the size of of Congress. There's no reason some of these big name people should be endorsing her unless the race is closer than they would like. Not to say they think it's a tie, but let's say she's only up Chantel Brown by 3 points, 4 points, 5 points. They don't want that out. Have you noticed you haven't seen any polls about this race? Haven't seen any polls. So let's finish playing this here. Good old Mark.
Options is where we got people who are, not going to be supporting things like Medicare for All and other priorities. Here you've got people who are, and I think at the end of the day, that's good.
So because Chantel Brown became a co-sponsor, literally days after joining the Progressive Caucus, I think one day after Nina Turner had declared she was running or something like that, she joined the Progressive Caucus because she knew that rule that they had or it was likely they would endorse her. And then you have the people in the Progressive Caucus, those who, when the idea of real progressives, who are the real progressives, he comes up. Pramila Jayapal comes up. But look at their messaging on this particular race. Yes, hit the like button if you're here. Let's see if we can get to, we have 92, 93 people fluctuating here. So let's see if we can get 92 likes. 92 likes, we got 92 people here. So let's continue with Mark in this video.
Good for the people of Ohio and good for the American people, but people in that district will ultimately make the decision.
All right, so a couple things really stand out.
There's an ad coming up. At least I like it when they warn me there's an ad coming up. Goodness. Let's hit this here. Let's go.
First, the endorsement apparently had no one disagreeing that they were all in line to back Chantel Brown. Now, we don't know who was.
What my question, not question, but my comment on this, in how some reformist leftists are kind of like up in arms about this. Have you not been seeing what they've already been doing? Is this a surprise? They don't do anything. So why is this? It's like, what? What do you mean? This is absolutely in line with their character. This is absolutely in line. No one came out and endorsed her, but I think somebody told me that AOC did last night or something. A less than 24 hours before the race starts endorsement is a non-endorsement. Okay, let's get that straight. That's a non-endorsement. It takes time for people to even hear you endorsed her, right? So people just supposed to be engaged onto social media to find out you endorsed her last night before they go to the polls? What if they were asleep? It's laughable. That's why, like, why are we outraged now? So let's oh, somebody said this happened. YouTube became ad-free in Russia. Doesn't that sound like a good thing to you? That sounds, I wish, can we become ad-free here in the United States? Let's continue with Rational National, another 45 seconds. Then we're going to cut to the Humanist reports to see the contrast. Oh, actually, no, that was a Medicare for All video. The contrast, I'm thinking, in the Humanist reports video. I'll explain in a second.
Who was in the room? We don't know if the entire caucus was there. So, you know, people like Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, AOC, were they, you know, completely on board with backing Chantal Brown over Nina? It's impossible to know, but I mean, we kind of know. They have not come out to endorse Nina Turner.
And that's the point. That's the point. It'd be, no, I'm not going to give that example.
So for whatever reason, I'm sure a lot of it is politics. They're afraid of if they come out to endorse back Nina over an incumbent, it's going to come back and hurt them in some way. But if you're going to go in there and be a fighter, you have to be willing.
A politician who makes decisions based on a fear of retaliation is a politician that's never going to do anything for the people they represent, ever. I wish we can just clone Kashama and just replace her or put her in place of all these people, because that's how a politician is supposed to be. How she is. She says you write legislation. When she was giving suggestions to Bernie Sanders, AOC, and the squad, she was like, you guys should be writing companion legislation. Bernie Sanders in the Senate, AOC in the squad in the House, bringing those legislations forward. You write it, and then that's when the real work starts. You go start campaigning on it. Raising funds to campaign on it. That's what a politician should be doing. So let's continue. Actually, yeah, let's give him a few more seconds, and then we're going to switch to the Humanist report.
Willing to challenge your own members, especially when you know they are not progressive and completely full of shit, as Chantal Brown is, and I'll show you some examples in a second. But what I also find interesting here is Mark Pocan's very flaccid endorsement of Chantal Brown, because they backed her. This is their person. She's a member of the caucus. Yet he says here they have two very, two progressive choices to make.
Yeah. It's like, how many instances do you need that the Democratic Party despises progressives before you stop supporting them? Like, you're trying to shove like a square peg into a round hole. And you're still, well, if you put a little WD-40 on the edges, maybe I can squeeze it in there. No. That's what it feels like from reformist leftists. Now, for those who just hearing this term that I'm using, reformist leftists, this is now what I'm using for leftists who feel like they can reform the Democratic Party, reform the system. So I'm giving them that name to kind of be a little more respectful. We've been calling, not me so much, but some of us been calling them the boutique left. I'm just going to call them reformist leftists. So let's continue with maybe 10 more seconds, 15 more seconds.
So I mean, he's not like, normally if you endorse somebody, you're going to be like, oh yeah, Chantal Brown, of course, she's our pick for this reason, this reason, this reason. You should go vote for her. But he didn't do that.
That's a good point. I didn't think of that until just now. You're part of the Progressive Caucus. Shouldn't you be saying we support Chantal, not making it seem like, well, they're both great? Shouldn't they be doing that? Or isn't that a tell that you don't really support her personally? You're just doing it as a somebody is putting pressure on them to stay out of this. Because it's weird not to make a comment on the race. Like you're not even saying, like, that's weird. So let's go ahead and bring up the Humanist report, and instead of unsharing, I'll just search for it. I did have it set up, but the unshare in my Humanist report and my internet for some reason is running a little glitchy here. Is this it? No, this is the one 2 weeks ago. Actually, let me just go to his page so I can make sure I get the right video. Here is it. Is it right here?
For Mayor Robert Garcia.
These ads. This is for LA, I think. This guy. Terrible. Oh, that's the Long Beach mayor.
School reopenings and economic recovery.
Robert Garcia is becoming known as the leader who's doing.
I didn't know he was watching.
Homelessness, reduce inflation.
What is he running for? When I worked at City Hall in Long Beach, he was the mayor there. So that's the reason why. He was the mayor of Long Beach because I worked at City Hall in Long Beach for a little while. So yeah. Anyway, that's a tangent. Let's get to the video here. So this is Mike, Humanist Report, Reformist Leftist, and let's listen to Mike.
Well, folks, I've got a bit of a public service announcement for you. Tomorrow, May 3rd, is the election between Nina Turner and Chantel Brown taking place in the 11th.
And that's today, of course. This is a video he made yesterday. After that video dropped of the comment Mark had said about the race with Chantel and Nina. Shout out, you see on the screen there, join our mailing list. We're up to like, I can't even remember, but if we can get 50 more people on today, we're trying to build our mailing list. You don't know how many times in our comments we get people saying, hey, I didn't get notified. We had several people yesterday, Monday, who just found out that we had a anti-imperialist summit. It was like, I didn't get any notification at all. So they missed the whole summit. They're watching it on replay, but they missed the whole summit because they're not getting notified. If you get on our mailing list, we notify you so you will never miss anything like that. So great idea to get on our mailing list. So now that I said that, I can take that off and put up the real topic. All right, so here we go.
11th Congressional District of Ohio. And if you live in this district, get out and vote for Nina Turner. She is a true progressive fighter. We need someone like her in Congress, not some fake progressive like Chantel Brown. Now, we talked about this race a couple of weeks ago, specifically within the context of who the Congressional Progressive Caucus endorsed. And they chose to snub Nina Turner in favor of Chantel Brown. Now, if you want to see what I said about that, you can go back and watch the video. But long story short, I said it was obviously dumb to do something like that because Chantel Brown isn't a real progressive. In fact, she's simultaneously a member of the Congressional Progressive Caucus and the...
Yes, she is. But this comment right here kind of made me laugh. Reformist leftist is wrong. That's assuming they won't change. Stagnant and endure leftist is more like it. Okay. Or is it more like? Let's read this one. What's the state of LA's mayor race? I don't know. I don't follow electoral politics that close, but well, I'm not gonna say I don't know. I do know. When I say I don't know all the details. But what's the guy name? I'll look up the names of them. There's one guy that's leading who has the most money. He's likely to win because he has the most money. You know, they doing all the same, putting, you know, people of color in his ads to act like he's down with the cause, that type of thing. So it's pretty pathetic. LA politics is pretty pathetic. Pelosi pressures Jayapal, who pressures the rest of caucus. I think that's what's happening. If I had to guess, like if there was a multiple choice and that was one of the answers, that's the one I would pick. They're getting pressure from Pelosi. You know, hey, let's go out to dinner. Dinner to Nancy. Hey, so Chantel, you know, race is coming up. Well, why don't you just stay quiet? Let's not have you say anything. And then possibly in 3 months, you can get that committee assignment that you've been waiting for, right? Right? That's the conversation Pelosi is having. So that is a great point. You're a leftist, but you join a party that is a right-wing party. What does that mean? They ain't left. So another comment about that. Let's go, Brandon. Okay, so let's go right here. Roxanne Marquez. Shout out to Roxanne Marquez, my friend. Also has the same name, but 2 X's. Great morning, and I admit I am disappointed. Not even a big Nina Turner fan, and I am still stunned by the lack of any solidarity whatsoever. So lots of great comments. I'll end with this one and get back to the video. They all went to Brandon's basement to sleep. That's John. Thank you, John. Let's continue
The New Democrats coalition. So progressive, centrist, you're in competing ideological caucuses. So nobody believes that you're actually serious when you support policies like Medicare for all. We all know that you're just paying lip service to progressive ideas, but that's neither here nor there. I don't want to talk about my opinion because the leaders of the Congressional Progressive Caucus weighed in on the endorsement because they heard our anger. So both Pramila Jayapal and Mark Pocan decided to weigh in. And they both had absolutely just embarrassingly bad responses. So first and foremost, here's what Jayapal said. As Punchbowl News explains, in an interview, Jayapal defended the Brown endorsement, describing her as a progressive member in good standing for 4 months who met all the qualifications laid out by the CPC. Jayapal also noted that even with the endorsement, the CPC's campaign arm hasn't put any money into the race. Jayapal denied this had anything to do with her future leadership goals, but she did confirm discussions within the CPC, particularly at a members-only executive board meeting last week about changing its endorsement rules going forward. I understand the frustration, and we're looking to see if we need to do anything to change the way we look at these things now.
Jayapal is terrible. Have we all reached that point? Have we? Lots of us was off of Jayapal literally months ago, like Nick. Some of us may still be there, but are we still there after this?
Now, we don't want people to sign up for the CPC like right before an election. So we're definitely looking at that. Should we have a certain period of time, whether it's 6 months or a year or something, that you have to be a member of the CPC and good standing? The other thing we're really looking at is, do we need to have some kind of change in endorsement based on whether somebody accepts this kind of giant PAC money, whether it's from the crypto billionaires or whether it's from DMFI, Democratic Majority for Israel? Now, this is a bad response, and I'll tell you why. But first, I'll defend the response just because she says, yeah, maybe we should look into changing things. So that's at least a hint of self-awareness, which is something that we haven't seen from any progressive leader in Congress, perhaps in forever. So that's the silver lining. The bad news is that this is an absolutely terrible response because she's still defending the endorsement while acknowledging that maybe Chantel Brown is a bit of a corporatist.
Commercial. Turn the sound off so it doesn't pick up. Okay, so let's continue.
So if she's a corporate Democrat and you acknowledge that maybe you should change the rules, then why would you still defend what is objectively a...
You see what reformist leftists do? It's a lot of going through it and seeing logically, see if you're doing it. It's a lot of that instead of just saying these people are not the people who they claim to be on Twitter. There's a lot of, oh, I'm disappointed. When are you happy in what they do legislatively? I know you're happy when they tweet stuff, but point out times that makes you happy legislatively, because they're legislators. That's their job, not tweeters. Let's continue and see what happens here.
A bad endorsement from the perspective of a progressive member of Congress. I mean, she's a leader, so it's like she has to defend everything that they do, apparently. But no, you don't. You're the leader. The buck stops with you. You can institute these changes. You can at least get the.
You can be an authoritarian, is what he's saying. Isn't that what that means? What he's saying there? That last part? Let's continue.
Get the ball rolling. And I think that people on the outside would stop viewing the Congressional Progressive Caucus as a bunch of jokes if they actually had some standards. I mean, would it be horrible to impose some sort of a litmus test that you can't take corporate PAC money if you want to be a member of this caucus?
I think I said that also in the stream a couple of weeks ago. Whenever this happened, maybe it was last week. That should be the baseline. That should be the baseline. Because if you're a progressive, this is what makes you a progressive. What is the thing that makes you a progressive? And it's actually another thing for leftists. When you say I'm a socialist, I'm a communist, because over this last week with the anti-imperialist summits, there were a lot of people that I admire, like 3 of them, who said during the summit, if you say you're a socialist and a communist, what organization do you belong to? Because being a socialist and a communist in your head, what does that do? What does that do? You read about socialism and communism, you like it and you agree with it, doesn't make you a socialist or communist. That makes you a person who likes the theory of communism and socialism. So what organization have you created, or what organization do you belong to? Because being a socialist, being these things, being a revolutionist, being an activist, these are terms that means you're doing something to show the principles you say you believe in. I should have not had that pause. So it's to show something, to do something that shows you believe in the things you say you do. So there were 3 people who said that over this weekend. So anyway, so let's continue. I'm going off on tangents, but that's what I do.
I mean, Chantel Brown, again, it is absurd that she's a member of the Congressional Progressive Caucus and the New Democrats coalition. They fight against everything that the progressive wants. So you have a saboteur in your ranks and you're defending this endorsement. What? Because you have to keep up unity. I mean, fuck unity. What matters is actually getting things done. And the way that this caucus has operated has relegated them into joke status perpetually. Progressives in the United States, they don't view this caucus as one that's actually effective. We view you as jokes because you are feckless. You can't get anything done.
And they're not going to change that, Mike. They're not going to change that. I'm going to cut this here. Like we could keep rambling on about this particular point. Let's get to Jordan's video, because he does have a couple of more newsworthy points in his video about the news. And I think his video is one of the first that I saw. I think he was the only one yesterday for a while, and then the Rational National and the Humanist report came out with theirs. So let's see, where was it? This one right here. So the squad betrayed Nina Turner worse than previously known. Can Nina win? This is Jordan live from Cleveland.
Where not only you're knocking on doors,
there's already an ad coming up. So let me restart it here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start it after Jordan plays the video we've already watched of Mark speaking. Let me see where it's at. So you'll hear him at the end and his reaction, which to me was funny, and my wife didn't understand why I kept busting up, rewinding this part and laughing last night. But let's play it here. Oops, sound.
Who are and I think at the end of the day, that's good for the people of Ohio and good for the American people. But people in that district will ultimately make the decision.
Oh boy. Oh boy. So there's multiple things really gross about that. So let's just break it down. And again, smash the like button, share this live stream. The more people that press the like button, the more people that will see this live.
Oh Lord, that was hilarious to me. There are so many different things that was gross about that to me. But he's right. Hit the like button. More people hit the like button, the more people will be able to join the conversation and get in the comments for these conversations. So we're at 150 or so people watching. So let's see if we can get to 150 likes. And now let's continue with the video. Now I'm gonna rewind it to the part, my favorite part there, where he his response to that video, to Mark's comment, and then I'll let it play. So let's watch a little more of the video. So let's go back right there.
I don't know if the divide that some of the journalists in Washington D.C. For some of the capital newspapers like to say, but we didn't have it when we endorsed someone. And the good news is you've got two great progressives running. I mean, we like this option. What I don't want to have options is where we've got people who are not going to be supporting things like Medicare for all and other priorities. Here you've got people who are, and I think at the end of the day, that's good for the people of Ohio and good for the American people. But people in that district will ultimately make the decision.
Oh boy. Oh boy. So there's multiple things really gross about that. So let's just break it down. And again, smash the like button, share this live stream. The more people that press the like button, the more people that will see this live stream. And again, we'll be here tomorrow on the ground throughout Election Day. We'll be at Nina Turner's event tomorrow night, win, lose, or draw. But there's several things. Number one, Mark Pocan is the co-chair of the Progressive Caucus. You would assume what he's saying is true because he's not going to go on national television and lie. Let's say if AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, or the squad adjacent, meaning Ro Khanna, Pramila Jayapal, or anybody else, he's not going to lie if those people spoke up in the meeting to not endorse Shontel Brown or to endorse Nina Turner. So when he says there's 100 people in the Progressive Caucus and not one of them voted to not endorse Brown, or not one of them voted because there was another option to just the Congressional Progressive Caucus just not endorse a candidate, So basically what he's saying is nobody spoke up to not endorse Shontel Brown. And obviously, if they didn't speak up to not endorse Shontel Brown, that means they did not speak up to endorse Nina Turner.
But so I should have prefaced this video by saying this. Because even in there, and you saw this in, actually, no, Mike. So for all the people that are reformist leftists, Mike is the one that I can palate the most. Like I can sit through his videos the longest, because some of his critiques are still tough, like vigorous critiques, and he's using the right language and sometimes. So, but you see in this video where this is a disastrous thing they did, right? but it's still a reluctance to really go in on the squad in the way that they deserve. There's still a resistance, a hesitance to that. In this video, you'll hear when he starts to get into more about the squad and his thoughts on them.
Turner, that would include the squad. And let's not only focus on AOC here. AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman. So it's not just AOC. Obviously, it's better to put her in a headline for clicks. But to be fair, it was across the board. Now, I haven't reached out to each one of them to confirm whether this is true or not. But from what I heard from sources that I have, was that they were squad members were making excuses why they did not, why they could not endorse Nina Turner. I won't get into that because those conversations weren't on the record, but squad members had been telling people behind the scenes rationalizations and excuses why they couldn't. But the bottom line is, according to Mark Pocan, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush didn't lift a finger for Nina Turner. And why is that important? Why is that important? And reminder, smash that like button. And I'm going to take your questions, comments, concerns. Super chats obviously come first, so keep them coming. Colin, if you could keep a list for me. So
I think that's
before
a
you scroll
commercial.
away, I need every
Oh,
Democrat.
let's
to
watch
hear
this
I am
bullshit.
Val Demings, and if I win in Florida against Marco Rubio, Democrats are virtually guaranteed to keep Senate control. Polls show I am just 2 points behind Rubio in the polls, but I can't surge ahead and take the lead without your help. Please, will you donate to my campaign before me?
A few things.
Why doesn't she just go back to the corporate donors and get more money? Why are they asking us for that? But let me answer a couple of questions here. What is going through your head when you're... What I laugh is his description of... There's so many different things that's gross about that. The use of the word gross. Like outside of like food or nausea or something like that, something that will make you nauseous is funny to me. So anyway, so that's what I'm laughing at here when he says gross. There was something else. I addressed this in another video, but let me explain. Because people who would say that they're real leftists would say, no, they're not left. We shouldn't be calling them that. And when I made the determination to start making this was the conversation. And the conversation was with Carlos and Nick. So this was on stream, and Carlos was like, yeah, I don't see a person who's looking to reform something as a leftist. That is inherently not a leftist strategy or thought process, is to reform. So that's what he said. And I said, well, in a time where we want to give people the benefit of the doubt of them self-describing, and they call themselves leftists, be who you are, who you want to be. So I'm just using leftists because that's the word they're using to describe themselves. So as a matter of out of respect for allowing people to self-describe themselves is the reason. So I'm sure I'll have to explain this reasoning again when people hear me use a reformist leftist. So that's the reason behind it. But let's get back to this video because I want to get to the propaganda information because that is really some good information.
Let's put aside for a second, just morally, when Mark Pocan is saying, oh, we got two great progressive choices here. Are you delusional or just full of shit? And I in general, I've liked.
Jordan seems to be so invested in this particular race than any other race. And I wonder why that is. Is it just a personal affinity for Nina Turner? But he is completely invested in this more than I've seen him on video be invested in other races. He could be invested in other races, but I'm saying on video, I haven't seen this from him for any other race.
Liked Mark Pocan. I think he's done some good things. But you're telling me that the Progressive Caucus's standard for who's progressive is somebody that literally has been in office for 5 minutes, Chantel Brown, hasn't done a thing. To her, in fairness, she's only been in office for a few months, but basically her biggest accomplishment is getting millions and millions and millions of dollars from the Democratic Majority for Israel, AIPAC, now an oil heiress, which David Sirota and the Lever reported on. As I reported, now in the last week or two, getting $150,000 from the mainstream Democrats PAC. Does that sound like the Progressive Caucus? The mainstream Democrats PAC? Mainstream Democrats PAC, which was created in February, their first.
There's so much invested in the difference, like for reformist leftists, there's so much invested in corporate Democrats versus progressive Democrats. There's so much invested in how they talk about the money that these candidates get. Oh, they're getting dark money. Oh, they get a flood of this, and CPAC money. Who exactly did you think the Democrats were? Isn't that their normal running buddies? So why is this surprising? Why is this a thing? This is the people you want to join. So let's continue.
Money that they put out was $150,000 against Nina Turner, who is who gave the largest donation to mainstream Democrats PAC. Reid Hoffman dumped in $500,000 to the mainstream Democrats PAC, and their first money spent was $150,000 against Nina Turner. Who is Reid Hoffman? Co-founder of LinkedIn and PayPal. Who is Reid Hoffman? He was an advisor to Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign.
Yeah, we know they're all awful. I'm going to stop it here. We know they're all awful. These are the people that hang out with the team you're vigorously wanting to join. Just bizarre. Let me see if there's any new news on Nina Turner before I move to the next story. Because these videos I watched last night, but let me see. Oh, wow. His video came up. Let me see if there's, let me share. If there's anything worth showing first. If there's not, then I don't need to do this. Wow. That's all they got on Nina Turner? All right. So no, yeah, that's all. It doesn't look like there's an update. Let's just do a search on YouTube. I want to make sure I got the latest information because this was prepared last night. So let's just type in Nina Turner. Make sure there's no new nuggets of information for me to report on. Let's go last hour. Oh, wow. Does she appear on something? Oh, this is her own page. She streamed something. So no on that. Looks like Hardlands covered the same thing. Looks like generational change is on there. So in the last hour, this is what we got. So Heartlands just dropped something. Nina Turner dropped something. It looks like she's talking. I'm joined by field director Kathy and campaign on for a campaign update. Oh, actually, let's watch this because this is a campaign update. This was put out. Was it last night?
Good day. Good evening. So good to be with you on Turner TV. We are.
So this was put out yesterday at 10:30 p.m. Maybe 9:30 p.m. Eastern, roughly. So let's see what this update she's saying.
Going to give you a magnificent update about the state of Nina Turner for us. And the state of Nina Turner for us is strong, baby. It is strong. We are on the eve of election day, and I am so excited to be talking to our campaign manager, the one and only Kara Turntime, and our field director, the one and only Katie Myers. We are going to give you a Team Turner update. So phone your friends and your frenemies, baby. This is something that they are not going to want to miss. Let me give you a moment. Text them up right now. Text them, tweet them, IG them, whatever you got to do. Let them know Turner TV is hot, baby. We coming in hot, hot, hot. That's it. And with that, I am going to turn it over to my campaign manager, Kara Turntime. Kara, tell them what you know.
Hey, S&T. Hey, Team Turner, it's Kara. I'm so excited to have you in this team meeting. Here we are the night before the election. The progressive movement is going to shake the world. This race is about the working families of Greater Cleveland and how they need a real fighter, how they need a real champion, somebody that's going to stand in between them and the big corporations that are making money hand over fist, record profits, but everything is going up except wages. And the only thing standing between working families that deserve a living wage, Medicare for all, student debt cancellation, paid family leave, the only thing standing in between the corporations that are trying to block that agenda and these working families that need a fighter is Nina Turner. And so
that the only thing that's standing in the way of people in her community getting those things that she listed, the laundry list of things. Is there anything else standing in the way of that? Like the Democratic leadership, like a president who said he would veto a Medicare for all bill. Why are we pretending Democrats are for any of that stuff? You're putting out hope in people that you're going to do those things when you absolutely know none of that is going to happen, in particular because you're going to the team that doesn't want that.
She's standing in the way, fighting for these issues, making sure that families get what they need, and corporations are pouring a lot of money into Greater Cleveland trying to stop us. But I want you to know that we are outrunning this dark money. We are knocking doors. We are making phone.
It's just bizarre to me that the team, it'll be like, let's put this out of the realm of politics. I'm just going to make up some. So it'd be like me trying to join the Lakers. And, oh, you know, I want to try out. I want to join the Lakers, but they're not giving me the right tryout dates. They're making things harder for me. They're putting bananas on the road for me to slip. Like, why am I grasping, dodging bananas and other booby traps to join a team that don't want me? Doesn't make any sense to me. And Nina Turner, and this is the thing. This is the propagandizing of people and the belief that literally one person, because we watch Hollywood and we got, what do we got? Jack Reacher, we got all these white heroes that can beat up everybody. One person can't take down. Corporate, imperialist, racist, vile people. Like, one person can't do that. And we've seen what has happened to each and every progressive. Name a progressive that hasn't been neutered by joining the Democratic Party or teaming up. Because I don't think that, Bernie Sanders is a Democrat now. He's still an independent, but he's been neutered just by way of teaming up with them. Same thing will happen to Nina Turner. You're neutered to survive, or you accept the terms to survive. So I don't know what kind of psychological warfare that goes on over there in Washington, D.C. that gets everybody. If you notice, every single one. Mondaire Jones, I don't even know where he's at. Jamal Bowman, that is a joke. As soon as he got elected, he switched up. You already see Ro Khanna, the imperialist, the neocon. You see Mark Pocan, how he describes Chantel Brown as as equally as good progressive as Nina Turner. These are the people you want to join as a team. Seems pretty silly to me, but we're going to move on to the main event, which is the propaganda. The history and science behind American propaganda. We're going to discuss with Amy Martin in a video that she covered this, and is covered pretty well. And then there's another much shorter video of Noam Chomsky that we're also going to use as a reference for this first video. So let me see if this is sharing. It is not yet. So let me get this set up. She always has a major introduction. Let me see if I should get through this introduction. One second, everybody. Is this the right? Wait. Is this the right video? This is not the right video. That's why. Okay, so hang on 1 second, everybody. I clicked the wrong link. Watch how one man rebranded. Is that this one? Okay, let's just do this. I'm just going to search it. I think it's on Telesur. So let's just search it here. Abby Martin. Let's just type the name of the guy. And Bernays. And here we go. Empire Files. That's what I meant to do. That's the link I was missing. All right, so got the video as it's setting up. This is a pretty informative video, so love it. So let's listen. Telesur, I was right. It was put out on Telesur. Telesur is great. So let's get into this topic of, oops. I got to remember I can start and stop with the touching my earset. Anyway, so let's get into this topic of propaganda. I think this is Abby Martin. Let's get into the point of propaganda. Because to me, so let me preface this segment. To me, when you're thinking about what's preventing people from seeing the obvious, it's propaganda. And then the next question is, then why don't we just get people to stop pointed out, it's because it's not easy to spot. And people just think that propaganda is just simply lying about stuff. It's not. There's a whole lot of science, a whole lot of development of American propaganda, 100 years to do this. So let's listen and discuss this. Okay, here's the right one. So let's get started.
It's been estimated that an average American living in cities sees up to 4,000 ads a day. Ads are everywhere you look. Subways, bus stops, billboards, magazines. This toxic culture of mindless consumption exploits our innermost insecurities and desires to meet impossible standards. The corporate PR machine is enormously successful due to a model created by a man named Edward Bernays nearly a century ago.
Edward Bernays, in the concept of public relations, which is just another word for propaganda, that's something else. The word propaganda became sort of dirty, and then they started using public relations. That's where that word, that kind of phrasing came from. So let's continue with this great information.
The nephew of Sigmund Freud, Bernays is considered the father of modern propaganda, or public relations.
So let me go back. I meant to hit pause button, so my bad.
In Europe.
So you heard right. He's the nephew of Sigmund Freud, the nephew. So you heard right. So the great, what is he, a psychologist or something like that? The nephew of him. So let's listen some more.
Enormously successful due to a model created by a man named Edward Bernays nearly a century ago. The nephew of Sigmund Freud, Bernays is considered the father of modern propaganda, or public relations. An Austrian aristocrat, Bernays' first contribution to the United States was helping President Woodrow Wilson sell the idea of World War I as a noble mission to spread democracy in Europe. In order to create the engineering of consent, Bernays argued, you must appeal to the unconscious mind.
This is what people who think, oh, I'm just going to spot the propaganda. I'm just going to watch MSNBC and spot the propaganda, and that's it. I'm good. So I can watch it and not be affected. That's not it at all. Any sort of good propaganda, you can't spot. That's what makes it good propaganda. So let's go ahead and
on behalf of numerous corporate clients, Bernays helped perfect the tools of manipulation and conditioning that are used today. To understand more about the history of propaganda and the collusion between the U.S. empire and Fourth Estate, I talked to Professor of Media Studies at New York University, Mark Crispin Miller, who wrote the intro to the new edition of Bernays' 1928 seminal book, Propaganda. When did public opinion begin to stand out as a force to be managed by the establishment?
For all intents and purposes, I think it's probably most accurate to say that World War I marked an important turning point in the rise of what we call public opinion as a consideration for political leaders. And
this also ties into polls. The propaganda to convince you, and then they poll you. This is the reason why I always say polls are more to gauge the effectiveness of propaganda than it is to tell what people really think. So let me say that again. Polls are really just a gauge of the effectiveness of propaganda. So you can tell me a poll, well, look at this poll. 70% of people are against defund the police. That doesn't tell me anything, because you're telling me that 70% of people that have been brainwashed say this. That's how I look at it. Let's continue.
The science of propaganda, which was used and has been used with increasing sophistication to move public opinion in certain directions, basically to make sure that we don't succumb to anything like real democracy. You know, I mean, public opinion has to be
right. The ruling class, the thing they fear most is real democracy. That's what they fear the most, is real democracy, because that means they will not have the power they have. Let's continue.
Be respected, but not out of any respect for the popular will. It has to be respected as a kind of...
This point here is important, so I'm going to rewind it right there.
Opinion has to be respected.
Looks like I need to go back some more.
Which was used and has been used with increasing sophistication to move public opinion in certain directions, basically to make sure that we don't succumb to anything like real democracy. You know, I mean, public opinion has to be respected, but not out of any respect for the popular will. It has to be respected as a kind of mighty beast that needs to be tamed unless democracy break out and upset the apple cart.
In the introduction you wrote to Bernays' book, Propaganda, you said his aim was not to urge the buyer to demand the product now, but to transform the buyer's very world so that the product must appear to be desirable as if without the prod of salesmanship. Talk about how this strategy has been institutionalized.
What Bernays understood brilliantly was the need to kind of shape the flow of events, to influence the media in a general way, to create an atmosphere in which...
You see this in mainstream media, the war propaganda right now. The bombardment of this. Look what's happening over here. Look at this, what they're doing over here. Is to create an atmosphere for you. To go, are you okay with us, your bills, your gas going up? To create an atmosphere. Because, of course, you're okay with that when you see what's happening over there. You get what I'm saying? So it creates, they're not coming out and telling you you should care about this more than that. They just show you a bunch of stuff that creates an atmosphere. So let's continue here. Oh, there it goes. Let's try this.
Which large numbers of people would end up making certain choices, coming to certain conclusions without really being aware of any stimulus, you see. So he had a lot of contempt for advertising because it was too explicit, it was too blatant. It was saying, buy this. I mean, it wasn't quite as simplistic as he made it sound. He badmouthed advertising and disdained it in favor of his own method. It was to kind of create the climate in which people would do certain things to benefit his clients.
Create the climate. Create the climate. Interject drugs into a community. Suppress it economically. Underfund the schools. And then this is where the propaganda that creates the climate. You got NYPD Blue. You got on every newscast, this person murdered, that person murdered. You're creating a climate. So, you know, propaganda is not just specifically lying in a sentence. It's creating the atmosphere for the person to go down the road you want them to go down. That's to me, very, very important. Very important. So let's continue here.
My favorite example is that, you know, he represented a piano company. How to get people to buy pianos? Well, he did this by creating a craze for music rooms in homes, right? He actually contacted people in the architectural magazines and so on, and in the news media, people who wrote about lifestyle and so on. They didn't use that term then. In order to create a kind of trend for music rooms. Okay, well, you have a music room. What are you going to put in it? I mean, obviously, most middle and upper middle class people want to buy pianos. You see, so even though he never mentioned the name of the piano company, and didn't even harp on pianos per se in the propaganda, it had the general net effect of getting people to buy more pianos. So the client was happy. He had a contract to help increase sales for American tobacco. And one of the most important things that he did to that end was to get Hollywood to incorporate
This right here. Let's go back to this part. The incorporation of Hollywood into propaganda schemes.
Of getting people to buy more pianos. So the client was happy.
Listen to this one.
He had a contract to help increase sales for American tobacco. And one of the most important things that he did to that end was to get Hollywood to incorporate cigarette smoking much more consciously and often artfully.
That's artful propaganda. Hits up Hollywood. Hey, here's a little dough for you. Can you write into the script, not just a nonchalant, here's a cigarette, like right into the script. Specifically, they're taking out a cigarette. And you notice, you see these black and white shows. This is a picture of one where it's literally just elegance. Like the cigarette is just. So propaganda is like infusing things into culture also. It's like infusing the criminality of black men into culture through movies, through television, through news broadcasts. If you put on every day, if there's 100, this is just a hypothetical example. If there's 1,000 murders in the United States a year, and 100 of those murders are done by black men, but the other 900 aren't, right? But let's say of your 100 newscasts on murder victims, you put on 75 of the 100 black men, even though there's 900 other. Guess what that creates? That creates the belief that black men are the natural criminals, that black men are the ones to fear because you put them on more often, even though they're the smaller number. So, but this cigarette ad, this example here, to me, also brings in Hollywood and how Hollywood is used to propagandize us, especially military propaganda, especially war propaganda.
Into the scenarios of movies, to get them to write cigarette smoking, lighting up, and so on, to write all that into the stories, you see. So it developed a kind of, grammar of, seduction, and, you could express various kinds of emotions with cigarettes, depending on, who lit you up or whatever. But the point I'm trying to make is that he understood that the inexplicit, the kind of inexplicit influence, just creating a large scale shift in the weather, to get people to do certain things. That was his great insight, you see. And now you ask, how did that come to define our world, basically? Mm-hmm. Well, let me answer that question by stepping back to say that I think that we live at a moment when propaganda has never been so pervasive, has never been so influential, has never been so dangerous. And I mean propaganda. I know that the word sounds terribly quaint. I say propaganda, people think of, Chinese voices coming squawking over loudspeakers.
Yes, that's what I was trying to point out. They're thinking of something that's so obvious, like blatant just lies, That's just lies. Propaganda is so much more sinister, it's so much more unconscious.
In Beijing, or they think of Soviet posters, right? Or Nazi propaganda. They think of Leni Riefenstahl. Actually, propaganda is not a totalitarian phenomenon primarily, although we have long since learned to think that it is, right? Propaganda is as American as apple pie. Propaganda at its most sophisticated was perfected, and I mean not just political propaganda, but commercial propaganda. Both kinds of propaganda were perfected jointly by the United States and Britain. In Mein Kampf, Hitler, in his famous chapter on war propaganda, talks about how deeply he admired what a brilliant job the British propagandists had done in World War I, had nothing but contempt for the German propaganda, and resolved to make sure that his own and the Nazi Party's propaganda would be brilliant in imitation of the British, you see? So
I'm going to go back to one of those pictures to just point out something here. I hope I don't have to go back too far. I think it's right here.
Although we have long since learned to think that it is, right? Propaganda is as American as apple pie. Propaganda at its most sophisticated was perfected, and I mean not just political propaganda, but commercial propaganda. Both kinds of propaganda were perfected jointly by the United States and Britain. In Mein Kampf, Hitler, in his famous chapter on war propaganda, talks about how deeply he admired what a brilliant job the British propaganda.
This poster, women of Britain said go. So this is like they're trying to propagandize men to join the military. If a hot woman says go, if your woman says go, it's so this infuses it in culture here.
Propagandists had done in World War I, had nothing but contempt for the German propaganda, and resolved to make sure that his own and the Nazi Party's propaganda would be brilliant in imitation of the British, you see? So, how many people does the world of propaganda employ in the United States, if you think about it? I mean, it isn't only people in public relations. It's also people in advertising agencies. It's also people in the world of so-called public diplomacy. It's also people in the world of what we call lobbying. There are countless euphemisms that we use today for propaganda, right? If you go up to a person in an ad agency or a PR specialist and say, well, how's the propaganda going? They're going to be insulted. They're going to feel like you've called them a dirty name. They don't understand that they do propaganda, right? They do propaganda. And the rise of all those euphemisms for it is a direct result of the successful effort to cast propaganda as something that they do in those closed societies. The Russians do it, the Chinese do it, the Iranians do it, the Venezuelans do it, the Cubans do it. We don't do it. We educate people. We provide them with information. And that misrepresentation of propaganda.
Americans really do believe that. Oh, we don't do propaganda, just everybody else. I've heard that many times. So let's continue. Let's see how much we can get through here.
Propaganda has had the paradoxical effect of making it extraordinarily effective. See, because propaganda works best when you don't see it for what it is.
The level of sophistication is completely unreal. And it's not just people being aware of the propaganda and commercialism coming at them, tens of thousands of advertisements every day, and being able to tune them out. it's things beyond that, the implants within the propaganda. Talk about that, the layers.
That's a good point. I mean, first of all, I want to say people tend to pride themselves on not falling for propaganda.
Here we go,
People
right
say,
here.
You know, commercials don't work on me. You know, I can see through them. And there are a number of ad campaigns that have successfully appealed to that idea. You know, the kind of winking, ironic advertising. It and you share a little chuckle or a little smirk over the fact that you're too smart to fall for this, right? This is kind of a postmodern move that advertising makes. Well, it's been making it in various ways really since the 30s, okay? People don't understand that even if they consciously scorn a particular ad as cheesy, or they tell themselves they don't really believe the claims, that has nothing to do with what they'll end up buying if they happen to get thirsty and they go into a store somewhere. But you know, let's move away from the world of what they call white propaganda, which is to say propaganda that announces itself as propaganda. That's TV commercials, political speeches, stuff like that, you know. And let's move into the world of what we call gray propaganda, which is propaganda that disguises itself as journalism or you know, any number of dodges and disguises that propaganda puts on, right?
Right. And actually, he's going to bring it up. I won't give it away.
Product placement in movies is a form of gray propaganda, you know. And then a movie like Argo, for example, or Zero Dark 30, to move to more sinister examples, are movies that have a kind of geopolitical agenda that are, you know, making a case for very powerful interests within the state. Movies that the CIA has actually helped the producers make, you know.
And let's talk about what's behind the propaganda. Bernays is quoted as saying, "We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men."
So this is the part, listen to this, where they say it. So listen to this part that's coming up. She's going to read a sort of a long quote. Here we go.
Propaganda. Bernays is quoted as saying, "We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men we've never heard of." Who are the invisible governors that are controlling these ideas?
Yeah, well, it's important to note that Bernays didn't think of that as a bad thing.
Yeah.
Right. He didn't think of that as a bad thing. Now, let's see why he didn't think of that as a bad thing.
You know,
the heroic elite.
Yeah, he thought that was a good thing because his assumption was that these august figures, these mighty figures in the worlds of business and politics and the media, were essentially benign. He actually believed that. He thought there was a kind of rationality operating up top, you know, which, you know, as I point out in my own introduction to the new edition of Propaganda, is a groundless claim. Because often people who devote themselves to propaganda end up believing it themselves. You know, if you have a vested interest in a particular version of the truth, you're going to believe it.
Does that sound like our corporate media? If you keep pushing propaganda, then you start to believe propaganda.
To just here we are today, where 90% of what Americans see, hear, and read is controlled by 6 corporations, 6 giant umbrella corporations. How does this function? You've called it a cartel because it seems like every single outlet echoes the exact same narrative and pro-US bias.
Yes, that's right. You know, for a long time, I used to think that what's happened to the media is entirely a matter of, you know, runaway deregulation, too much concentration of power, you know, too few independent.
One of those is gone. I think, is it GE that sold everything? I can't remember because I think it's down to 5. Let me see. Or it could be this one here. Time Warner merged with one of these groups. But anyway, I think it's down to 5 now.
Independent voices, too little broadcast regulation, and so on. And I think that has a great deal to do with it. But I now realize that there's another factor that has to be considered as well, and that is the energetic involvement of the covert side of our own government in the news and entertainment business. Countless people within the media are either wittingly involved with, our intelligence agencies, which is something that started to be exposed in the 70s with the congressional hearings, not just the CIA, but the FBI as well.
I thought that it was a matter of real concern that planted stories intended to serve a national purpose abroad came home and were circulated here and believed here, because this would mean that the CIA could manipulate the news in the United States by channeling it through some foreign country.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
That's a yes to that question. Anything then a no is a yes, especially when your response is, let me answer that question in a private session. There's no need to answer it privately if the answer is no. That's decades ago. You don't think they perfected this even better? This is literally in the 70s. So we're talking 50 years. I just have to hear this again. Let's listen to this historical video here where they're talking about the CIA and FBI planting stories in people in the press, whether it's print press or television news.
In the 70s with the congressional hearings, not just the CIA, but the FBI as well.
I thought that it was a matter of real concern that planted stories intended to serve a national purpose abroad came home and were circulated here and believed here, because this would mean that the CIA could manipulate the news in the United States by channeling it through some foreign country.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
So, here's this piece on Joe Biden from the CIA. New York Times here. Put that in there. Then it comes out as this person wrote this when the CIA wrote that. This shit, man, I feel like I can go another hour on this shit, but we're going to be wrapping up in maybe 15 minutes here. But this, let's listen to the rest. So he asked about the print, and then he says something. Then as he's going to the next part, which is television, broadcast news, he whispers in the ear of somebody, either somebody part of the CIA or an attorney, was saying, motherfucker, you need to stop answering these motherfuckers' questions out here. I don't know what the fuck your problem is, but this should be in closed session.
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
But then there are also a lot of people who are,
What are your thoughts on that video? What are your thoughts on that video? I mean, that snippet there. What are your thoughts on that part from the House intelligence hearings? I think that's what that said. Or the intelligence hearings from the 1975, where you have members of, the alphabet group, CIA, FBI, on camera, admitting at least to both. To me, that's an admission on both. That they have people. So if they had people in 1975 or in the 70s, do you think they have people now? Do you think the CIA has a story or has a way they want to go, the nation to go, so they drop these news stories to the media and the media just regurgitates it? And now that becomes fact into our culture.
Manipulated in traditional ways. They have sources inside the government who will give them certain tips, give them certain stories, and they end up becoming dependent on those sources for that kind of information. They break really big stories and so on. And then they, I think without even knowing it, end up carrying water for those agencies. You can hire people, you can actually pay them, you can have them under contract, right? Which is chilling and wrong in a democracy for the government to be paying people who are supposed to be providing the public with news to,
Right.
basically insert state propaganda into that news. It's wrong, but it's only one way of many in which the press and often the entertainment industries end up reflecting, serving the agenda of the state and very, very powerful corporations. How else to explain the bizarre unanimity that we notice today of the press on certain stories that they somehow managed to get absolutely wrong over and over and over and over? I mean,
So the point he's making is, how is it that we're having news organization who's supposedly doing news, but all of them are getting the same exact stories wrong, unless they have the same exact FBI, CIA contact? Let's continue.
And I've been around for a long time, studying the media in this country for decades. I've really never seen anything like this. There's an Alice in Wonderland quality to it, because we live in a country that prides itself on freedom of expression and the marketplace of ideas. And yet we see over and over and over and over again on issue after issue, there's a certain truth that is enforced with exactly the same kind of ruthlessness and impatience with any disagreement that you'll find in countries like North Korea.
It's not like it's some big conspiracy theory where there's just 100 guys in a room smoking, figuring out, here, we're going to pull this on this news agency, Fox is going to air this. The interlocking boards of directorates, the sponsorship, the direct consumer advertising, especially when it comes to pharmaceutical agencies. How would you say it works? Is it just a machine functioning on its own and people?
I'm going to pause this video here and bring up Noam's video. It's a lot shorter. It's probably about 2 minutes of his video that we're going to watch. I got to get off of here soon because got to make breakfast and got to get my girls to school. So, yeah, let's get into, I think it's somewhere around here.
Which was established in order to try to drive a basically pacifist population into support for the war that Wilson very much.
Actually, hang on a second.
And was for almost 100 years connected with, very powerfully, the public affairs work of the American Tobacco Company,
Okay,
working with
it's this question. So let me play it. She asked a question about the person Edward Bernays and him writing about him.
and your love of linguistics. I was just curious if you ever had the opportunity to have any connection with Mr. Edward L. Bernays, who was a resident of Cambridge for the last 40 years of his life, was first in New York City, and was for almost 100 years connected with, very powerfully, the public affairs work of the American Tobacco Company, working with Guatemala for a war that almost was started because of bananas in the 50s, and all of these different media actions that I believe have really contributed to where we are now in our worldview of, we have got a corporate mentality of destroying what we don't like, taking it over, manipulation of it, because his learning from his uncle, Sigmund Freud, was utilized to his best ability with twisting people's view of what was good for them so that he could sell products to them.
Thanks, caller. Eddie Bernays.
Actually, I never, you're right, he lived in Cambridge. We weren't that far apart. I never actually met him. But,
Called the father of public relations.
Yeah. But I've written a fair amount. I've looked at a lot of his work, and in fact, I've written a fair amount about it. I suspect that it wasn't his Freud who was the big influence on him, but rather, in fact, exactly what he said. He said the major influence on him was his participation in the first state propaganda agency in the United States, Woodrow Wilson's Committee on Public Information, which was
Woodrow Wilson's Committee on Public Information. Public information, you would think, oh, that's just information. No, that's the propaganda wing.
Was established in order to try to drive a basically pacifist population into support for the war that Wilson very much wanted to get into in Europe. And it succeeded. Within a short period of time, the propaganda efforts, they were called propaganda in those days. It was more honest use of terminology. The propaganda efforts of the Committee on Public Information, a very Orwellian name, did succeed in driving a pacifist population into raving anti-German fanatics, you know, to the point where the Boston Symphony Orchestra couldn't play Beethoven, things like that. It drove the country into a kind of hysteria. And the participants in that committee included many people of subsequent great distinction and influence. Edward Bernays was one. Another was Walter Lippmann, the leading public intellectual of the 20th century and most important figure in American media. Both of them went through that experience and learned from it and wrote about what they learned from it. What they learned, as Bernays put it in a famous book of his called Propaganda, late 1920s, I think, he said that we have learned that the intelligent minorities can engineer consent through the use of manipulation.
Intelligent minorities. This is the part I've been playing this whole video for this section right here. Listen to this.
Minorities.
Let me go back a little bit more. I never go back enough always.
A famous book of his called Propaganda, late 1920s, I think. He said that we have learned that the intelligent minorities can engineer consent through the use of manipulation, propaganda, and control. And we should do it for the benefit of the public. It's for the benefit of the public that we should control them and engineer their.
This is what they believe. This is what the ruling class believes. The Bill Gates, the Michael Bloombergs. They really believe there's some sort of small minority of elite thinkers, people who should be running the country. and making the decisions, and they just have to convince all of the dumb people of the right choices. And you do that through manipulation. Let's see if we play that one more time.
The late 1920s, I think. He said that we have learned that the intelligent minorities can engineer consent through the use of manipulation, propaganda, and control. And we should do it for the benefit of the public. It's for the benefit of the public that we should control them and engineer their consent. Lippmann said pretty much the same thing. Also drawing from the experience of the wartime propaganda agency, he wrote important essays on democracy in the 1920s called Progressive Essays in Democracy. They were both liberals, kind of Wilsonian progressives. He said, well, we've learned that there's a new art in the practice of democracy, the art of what he called manufacturing consent. Bernays' term was engineering of consent. And this is very significant because the public should not be participants in the democratic process. They should be spectators, not participants. They are ignorant and meddlesome outsiders, as he put it, and for their own benefit.
You hear this stuff here? Like, I can literally do another show on just this video and some of these comments that he's saying from Edward Bernays. But democracy is not for us, the peasants. It's too intellectually, it's above your pedigree. Let us take care of that. Just follow along.
Essays in Democracy. They were both liberals, kind of Wilsonian progressives. He said, well, we've learned that there's a new art in the practice of democracy, the art of what he called manufacturing consent. Bernays' term was engineering of consent. And this is very significant because the public should not be participants in the democratic process. They should be spectators, not participants. They are ignorant and meddlesome outsiders, as he put it. And for their own benefit, we, the intelligent minority, the responsible men, must control them. Bernays' particular.
This is the Hillary Clintons, like I said, the Bill Gates, the Michael Bloombergs, the Jeff Bezos, the what's the one with the sinister laugh from Facebook? That guy, Mark Zuckerberg. They think they're this small minority of people that is so intelligent that they should be making and leading the country. Think about Davos, the meeting in Davos of all the countries and what they're planning for all of us in the future. Let me rewind. So my wife and kids are up now. And my wife has on an outfit that she's signaling to me for something. Yes. Yes, you're signaling something. You're signaling to me for something. So I got the signal here. I don't know why you sniggling and giggling over there. All right, so let's continue here.
They are ignorant and meddlesome.
Actually, I'm going to rewind because these two sections where he's paraphrasing or summarizing what Edward Bernays has said is astonishing. This is back. You got to understand why they're so open with this. Is because back when they thought propaganda wasn't a bad thing, even the use of the word.
Also drawing from the experience of the wartime propaganda agency, he wrote important essays on democracy in the 1920s called Progressive Essays in Democracy. They were both liberals, kind of Wilsonian progressives. He said, well, we've learned that there's a new art in the practice of democracy, the art of what he called manufacturing consent. Bernays' term was engineering of consent. And this is very significant because the public should not be participants in the democratic process. They should be spectators, not participants. They are ignorant and meddlesome outsiders, as he put it. And for their own benefit,
He said he put it. They're ignorant and meddlesome outsiders. Outsiders of democracy. We're outsiders of democracy. This is the thinking of the person who have constructed the way our propaganda style in America.
Intelligent minority, the responsible men, must control them. Bernays' particular significance, this had all sorts of influence all over the place, but in the intellectual culture, in political science, and so on. But Bernays' particular influence was exactly as you say, he was one of the founders of the modern public relations industry, which grew into a massive industry right at that period. Had it existed before, but it became very important after at this time. And it's
all right. I think I'm gonna pause there. It is getting kind of late. I've pushed it as far as I can go because I love this content on this propaganda. So this will just be part one. I'm gonna have to do another stream on this to cover part two. You're gonna hear some noise in the background. This is a proletariat household, so we're up and now cooking breakfast for kids. So like this stream again, I didn't cover everything like I wanted to, so I will have to come back to some of this, but like this stream, very, very important. Let me see where we're at with likes. Would love to get to 300, not by the end of the stream. I don't think that's possible. We're at 254, so let's see if we can get to 300 for today. Like this stream, share this stream. We'll see what happens with Nina Turner today. Support the channel, Patreon. Our channel is demonetized right now, so you can support us through Patreon, different levels of support there if you're able to do so. Also, very important, you're not being notified on here of our content. A couple of people mentioned that it wasn't notified of the anti-imperialist summit until it was over. So the workaround around that is our mailing list. Let me put it up. Subscribe to our Substack. That is also doubles as our mailing list, and you'll be able to get notifications when our content is out. Thank you for everybody watching. We got up to about 225 people live today. Let me throw that up. Very important information regular people need to know right damn now. Absolutely. That's why I'm going to have to cover this again, this second video, and some of the things they say. The Edward Bernays. I think I'll just do an Edward Bernays kind of video and cover this. Will these fuckers ever go down? That's the question, isn't it? That's the question, isn't it? That's where we're all saying we are blacking out corporate propaganda. That is it. That's the last comment. I'll leave it there. I'm going to be checking out. Let's put up a video. I posted it yesterday. I'm sure all of you will love it. I'm not going to come back after the video. The stream will end. Thank you for those watching on Rockfin. Thank you for those watching on Twitter, on Facebook, Twitch, and soon to be Rumble and Odyssey. Thank you for watching. Let me share this new clip. Let's remove that one and share this new clip. I can't believe I'm done with my stream already and I got the rest of the day. So feels good. All right, here goes the great George Carlin. I'm going to leave you with this. These words are very fitting for this episode and what we've been talking about. So here is George Carlin.